Hi everyone, welcome to the Think and Grow Chick Book Club, where we are going to discuss our read for April and May, which was The Path Redefined by Lauren Maillian. I am super excited, but I'm going to give us just a hot sec to allow people to join us. If you can hear me just fine, and if you're going to be on the chat with us tonight, go ahead and just say hi in the question and answer box, and I'll be able to see them. Who is here with us now? Go ahead and leave a comment. Just waiting for everybody to join. Hello, those who are just joining us, just allowing everybody to trickle in. Since this is going to be a very interactive book club, Lauren Maillian will be joining us in a little bit, but before she joins us, we're going to spend some time discussing the book from the book club. So thank you, those of you who are on the Hangout, and we'll just give it a hot sec for everybody else to come in. Let me go in my Facebook group and remind everybody that come on, we are live. We are live. Hello, hello, those who are joining. Just give me a little bit to remind everyone in our group that we're getting started. If you can hear or see me, go ahead and say something in the Q&A box, in the chat box. There should be something that says Q&A that you should be able to hit. So go ahead and type and let me know that you can hear and see me. Before I start running my mouth. Well, I'm not going to be running my mouth. This is a book club discussion. So hopefully you got a chance to check out the book. We're going to be talking a lot about it today. And it's going to be very interactive. I'm not just going to be sitting here, you know, explaining the book. You are going to have to share your insights based on what you read as well. And as I said earlier, for those of you who are just joining, Lauren Maillian, the author, will be with us in a little bit. But we're going to do our book club discussion first. So I am in my private Facebook group. Hopefully all of you who are on the line are a part of the Think and Grow Chick accountability group. If you're not, go ahead to thinkandgrowchick.com/join. You can sign up. You'll get notifications about not only this book, but future books that we're doing for the book club and other Google Hangouts that we might be having as a result. So let me just remind everybody, everyone, we are live on Google Hangouts for our book club. Yes. Join me now. Oh, thank you, Crystal, for letting me know that you can hear me. That helps, because I've done this before where, you know, I was talking for like 20 minutes and people were like, we couldn't hear you the entire time, which is not good. So thank you for that confirmation. Join me now. Okay. Just posted that in my Facebook group. Thanks to everybody who is here. So why don't you guys let me know, did you read the book or not? Who's here who actually read the book? Go ahead and leave me a comment in the chat room. I have it here on my Kindle, so I'm looking down. Good book. I was able to read it while doing some traveling this past week on the airplane, so it's definitely good reading. Got a lot of insights about this entrepreneurial journey. But I wanted to make sure that I'm not the only one who read it. Now, I know in the email, I said if you didn't read it, you know, I still wanted you to join, which is totally true. So you can still ask questions, you know, maybe if you just have general questions about entrepreneurship, that Lauren Maillian, who's going to be joining us at around 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. So she'll come on and the halfway point of our book club discussion. You can ask her questions, but for those of you who read the book, I want to know if you read the book, because I don't want to be just discussing the book with myself. I want to make sure that others read the book as well. So if you did, just let me know that you read it. Google Hangouts, I think, has a 30-second delay. So go ahead and let me know whether or not you read it in the chat room. There should be something that looks like a Q&A. Crystal found it, so I'm assuming it's working just fine. Everybody else should be able to find it. And this is also how you're going to be asking Lauren questions when she joins. So it's really important that you find that chat box and start communicating with me in there. And don't just, sit watching this and think, oh, well, someone else is going to share whether or not they read the book, or someone else is going to share their questions. No, we're waiting on you. In fact, that's sort of what this book was about, in a sense of taking initiative and seizing opportunity by the horn. So why not demonstrating that by being proactive and sharing your thoughts in the chat box? Might just be me and you, Crystal. No one else is stepping up to the plate and sharing. So I'll give it a little bit. Okay. So for those of you who are not familiar with Lauren Maillian is a phenomenal millennial entrepreneur who's doing some really amazing things in the entrepreneurial space. She was the founder of the Sugar Leaf Winery, which was amazing that she founded at 19. Definitely want to ask her questions about that. And then she moved on to Luxury Marketing Brands, which is a marketing group that she does for lots of different luxury market type brands, right? So other wine companies and beauty brands and different things like that. And also she is the managing director, I believe, getting that title right, for Gen Y Partners, which is a venture capital firm. So she's like everything. She's a venture capitalist, a wine connoisseur, or someone who has started a wine business, and then a marketer and branding expert for other businesses. And then on top of that, she is also one of the co-hosts on the new Oxygen show, Quit Your Day Job, which is like phenomenal. I know many of you who are watching are interested in learning how to quit your day job, so we'll definitely be asking her a lot of questions about that when she joins us. But to get started with the book club, again, hopefully y'all who are watching at least browse to the book. I mean, it is a book club discussion, so I'm hoping we can chat about it. Hopefully it's not just me giving all of my insight. But it was, to be such a detailed book, it was a pretty quick read for me. I think most people could probably get through the book maybe in like 2 or 3 hours or so. So let me see how many chapters there were. I want to say there were 16. Yeah, there were 16 chapters, and the book was divided into 4 parts. And I liked it because it was somewhat kind of like a memoir, but not quite. It's like part memoir, part advice giving. It's just a lot of different stuff going on in the book about different tips that you really want to apply not only to your entrepreneurial life, but just to your life in general. And she does touch on how to be better even if you are an employee at a 9-to-5 position. So yeah, I thought it was a great book all around. Oh, thank you, Crystal. Okay, so Crystal's saying that she's commenting because she had the same thing happen to her on one of her Q&As. So girl, you feel me. You know how tough it could be to get up here and to do some of these things. So I appreciate you commenting. For the rest of you who are watching, come on. It can't just be me and Crystal. It's got to be a dialogue here. So I want to hear from you all. There should be something that looks like a Q&A box somewhere, based on where you're watching, maybe a button or something. My dashboard looks a little different as a broadcaster, so I'm not sure what you see on your end, but if you click that button box, wherever it might be, go ahead and leave some comments. Let me know if you read the book. Let me know what you think about what you read, because I would love to discuss this with you. So the book was divided, as I said, into 4 parts. And the 4 parts were attracting opportunities, so always being prepared, investing in relationships, seizing opportunities, not hesitating, and succeeding on your own terms. And I felt good as I was reading this book because a lot of what Lauren was saying were things that either I've found myself doing naturally or things that I just kind of stumbled on that I learned to be really good strategies just in terms of trying to achieve some level of success in your business and in your personal life. So I felt that that was really helpful. Oh, thank you, Yersi, for letting everybody know. The button box is a series of squares on the top right corner of the video. So the top right corner of the video. So I think for you, it would be here somewhere. Let me see. My left, right? Top right corner of the video, maybe somewhere in this region. Click that and leave your comment. So, well, Crystal and Yersi, while I have you here, how about you ladies? Did you all read the book? Or are you just here to gather some insight from Lauren, who will be joining us at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. So in a little bit, she's going to pop in and take all of your questions. But just here to know, I just want to know if you guys had read the book. Yeah, okay, thank you, Yersi, that's really helpful. So you guys might not see the Q&A box unless you click on it, so that's important. So I think it's this region, top right corner for you guys, which is my left. Click on it there. But as I was saying, the book is divided into 4 parts. The first chapter was about this entrepreneurial life. And I even liked that chapter because I crack up when I talk to my entrepreneurial friends and it's like, girl, are you about this life? Are you really about this life? Because entrepreneurship is no joke and it could be difficult at times, it could be challenging, but for those of us who are in it, I don't know, entrepreneurship just feels like water to a fish, right? So it just feels like you are where you are supposed to be. And that definitely seemed to be the case with Lauren. In chapter 1, she talks about how she had entrepreneurial, or at least, kind of go-getting parents growing up in the New York area. So she was born to be a city girl, born to be very independent, and her mother was an exec or had a high position at Essence magazine, which sounds amazing. Thank you, Keegan, for sharing. Haven't read the book? Well, definitely get it when you get a chance to. Hopefully you'll get a lot of great insight, especially when Lauren joins on. And so Lauren's mother was an exec at Essence magazine, and her father was, I want to say, an investment banker and doing mortgage-backed securities. So she was always kind of in the groove, living this high, fast-paced lifestyle out of New York. And so she talks about how a lot of those experiences shaped her, made her want to see entrepreneurship. And I think that's so important, especially when we have this conversation about women taking on certain roles, or minorities being more prominent in certain roles. I think her background and her experience just demonstrates how important it is to have that representation in your life, because if you can see it, then you know that you can be it. And she made a comment somewhere in the book where she was like, my mother was never the one that was like cooking and cleaning at home. She was always the one that was like on calls and going to meetings and doing all these different things, and then running off to big events dressed up at night. And so that was the image that she saw for her mother about what was possible for her to be, a power brokering type woman. And she even talks about later when she had her kids and decided that she wanted to take some time off and just, kind of stay and focus on her attention on her kids as a stay-at-home mom, which is certainly admirable. But as she was dropping her kids off as daycare, she would see the other women who were coming in who were kind of like high-powered, go-getting women who had their suits on, and she felt a sense of longing for that because that's what she's always wanted since she was younger. So I was really happy that she described that, because a lot of people don't necessarily feel that they can do certain things because that wasn't modeled for them in their home. So a discussion question that I had for you all, whether or not you read the book, was what experiences did you see modeled for you in your household, in your neighborhood, the dynamic between your parents, and how did that shape your journey, your career path? So if you are an entrepreneur or you're pursuing entrepreneurship, was that something that you saw that was modeled for you or not? And if it wasn't modeled for you, what was modeled for you? And if the opposite was modeled for you, how did you make your transition to find your way to entrepreneurship? So I think Lauren gave a really detailed explanation of kind of how she got to where she is in this entrepreneurial life. But I want to know how you got to where you are in this entrepreneurial life. So in the words of Evelyn Lozada, are you about this life? You ain't about this life. You about this life? Okay, share how you became about this life. Glad that you all are jumping on. Thank you for leaving me comments so I know it's not just me talking to the interwebs. And I know that there's a 30-second delay, so I will give it a sec for you to enter in your comments. Come on, y'all, find that Q&A box in the top right-hand corner. because when Lauren jumps on in about 15 minutes, we're going to be asking her some questions. So make sure you make good use of the Q&A box. So I'm waiting for answers on our first discussion questions, which is, what was modeled for you in terms of your entrepreneurial path, professional path? Did your parents model it the way Lauren's parents did or not? I know for me, my experience was kind of half and half. My mother wasn't so much an entrepreneur, but she was definitely kind of like go-getter woman wanting to do things and move up in corporate America. So even though, she still cooked and cleaned and did things at home, she was definitely about her business. So I too, similarly to Lauren, saw that model and kind of, that was my framework for how I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be like corporate Barbie, I remember in high school telling my mom with my allowance, how at the beginning of the year you go buy back to school clothes and all the other kids were buying like ripped jeans and crop tops and other stuff to look all cute and trendy. And I just wanted my mother to take me to the Limited and to Express so I could get black pants with a button-up shirt and a work bag. And I just wanted to look so professional, even at 15 in high school. So seeing that model for me, like, started very early. So I always knew that I wanted to be a woman that was like mover and shaker, wanted to do things. Oh, let's see. All right. Okay. So Keegan says, my mother was in the hospitality industry, which influenced me. My dad always wanted to start a business of his own, but dedicated his life to his family and 9 to 5. He never had the time to get it off the ground. Okay, thank you for sharing. So with that, seeing your father having this dream, but not being able to get it off the ground, has that made you more passionate about going after it? And then Yursi says, it was somewhat modeled for me. My father owned several businesses, but I didn't spend much time around him. However, now as an adult, I'm still getting role models who are showing me more possibilities. Yes, role models are so important, even as an adult. Loha says, entrepreneurship wasn't modeled to me. I'm just now starting to look into it. My parents had traditional jobs, and I've seen both of them lose them and the stress it creates. Yes, depending on someone else for your livelihood. That is so true. I'm a big believer that you are you incorporated. So it doesn't really matter whether you work a job or not, whether you want to work a job or not. You should also always have options, especially options that don't necessarily depend on, an employer in your arsenal, because you never know what could happen. So thanks, Loa, for sharing that. I think that is a really great comment. Fatima says, for me, always worked hard from 9 to 5 from my mom, but dad was all about working for himself. Yeah. Similarly, my dad did both entrepreneurship and work in corporate job. He kind of went in and out because he was able to consult in computer engineering. And then my stepdad was always an entrepreneur. So I remember, being 16 and 17 and being like, Tommy, do you have a job? Like, what do you do all day? Because he was always going downtown, entertaining clients, taking people to, sports venues and basketball games. And it was always like client work. And I was like, what kind of job is this? I want to be you when I grow up. That would be amazing. So it was half and half modeled for me. So thank you all for sharing how your experiences helped you get about this entrepreneurial life, right? So also in the first part of the book, she talked about taking control of your own voice in your own narrative. And I thought that that was huge, especially as a young woman. So I'm not sure how old Lauren is now, but I know at the time that she wrote this, she was only 28. And she talked about being very strong and not allowing people to make assumptions about her. And, obviously they might look at her and they might say, oh, you're a woman. Oh, you're young, what do you know? Like, seriously, she started a wine business at 19. I can only imagine some of the, we'll say, looks of disbelief she probably got from other investors and partners who wanted to do different things with her. And then to continue in that vein to doing everything from a new marketing brand to wanting to, be the managing director of a venture capital firm, age, gender, ethnicity, all of those things can play into stereotypes. So I really appreciated her saying that she took a firm stand from the beginning and not allowing others to pigeonhole her or stereotype her. So for you all who are watching this, what would you say? How do you approach that? Do people maybe pigeonhole you when you tell them some of your entrepreneurial dreams and some of the things that you want to do? And do you have the disposition of Lauren where you take a stand from the beginning? You're like, nah, that's not who I am. This is who I am. Let me tell you. Or do you take the position of allowing people to kind of think what they want and you just show them and surprise them later? You know, I've heard kind of both ends of the spectrum. Some entrepreneurs are like Lauren and they're very much like, no, we're going to correct this from the outset, so you know exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. And some people, they don't even correct people. They're like, whatever, if you want to think that, that's fine. I'm going to go show you up later. So which position do you find yourself taking? There's a 30-second delay, so I'll let people, let me see if I can find a quote from that part of the book where she talks about that. I thought that was really good. Taking control of your own voice and your own destiny. And also it's really important to know who you are, not just for the sake of correcting others, but as she says, to be able to effectively strategize your own success. So if you know yourself well enough, then you know what your passions are, what you want to get into, how you need to shore up maybe some of those core competencies that you're not quite as good at, but are necessary for your dream so that you can network and find other people who can help you do it. So all of that is really important. Okay, Miss Brandy says, yes, I can show you better than I can tell you person. All right, so you're like, let me show you who I really am. Don't you worry about it. Yes. I would say I kind of go back and forth. Sometimes, this doesn't sound bad. I don't know if this is good or bad, so I'm not saying like this is something that you should do. But sometimes I don't feel like investing the energy in always correcting people or kind of, you know, nope, this is who I am, you know, from the outset. So sometimes I do take that position of just kind of showing, but I mean, it really depends on the situation. Maybe like in a job situation or in a business situation, I might be more forceful about like, you know, making sure that expectations are understood from the beginning. But in casual encounters, like, you know, at cocktail parties and different networking events, I've had people assume all kind of stuff like, you know, oh, whatever, you look young, you look like a college student, and not believing that I had any business being there. And those to me, maybe I just get kind of like a sick joy out of it. But I find it kind of funny when, you know, you go to a networking event and you're talking to someone and you're like, yeah, you know, this is what I do. I'm in entrepreneurship, da, da, da. And you can tell that they're just blowing you off. They're like, whatever, you know, who is this young girl? What does she know? Whatever. I'm looking over your shoulder because I want to find somebody more important. And they don't realize why you're there. And then when, say, you are brought up to the stage and asked to speak, or, you know, someone very important is then ushering you in and then introducing you to everybody, suddenly their eyes get, you know, super big and they're like, oh, wait, hi, yeah, it was so great talking to you earlier. So tell me more about what you do. You know, suddenly they're all really interested. So to me, that's hilarious when people underestimate me and then, you know, I allow others to be like, oh, no, you don't know about Courtney? Oh, this is what she's doing. And then all of a sudden they're very interested. I find that hilarious personally, but I don't know, maybe we should take a page out of Lauren's book and start being more forceful and not allowing that to happen from the beginning or from the outset. So I will wait on your comments to let me know. Most of the time I decide to show people later. This is what Millie says. I do not want to waste my energy to convince some people. And sometimes I just refuse and block some people. Girl, yes. I'm trying to find the balance between the two. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we're all working towards. Fatima says, I can show you better than I can tell you. Think what you like. Yes. Oh, Nora shares about her experiences that modeled her. I have the spirit and drive. I have trouble with the execution. That might be something that we'll leave for Lauren to address. My mother is very outgoing. My father is the introvert. I'm a lot like my dad, but I want to be more like my mom. Okay, so introverted, but wanting to be more extroverted when you pursue your entrepreneurial pursuits. We'll definitely put a pin in that and talk to Lauren about that when she jumps on. I'm still working on not feeling obligated to explain my plans to people, but I agree that it is just better to show you. Yes, Crystal. I totally agree as well. So let's see what else Lauren discussed in the book. She also talked, this one, okay, in the book that I got really excited about. So in chapter 5, she talks about investing in relationships. And she somewhat talked about that in chapter 2 as well. So chapter 2 was serendipitous by design, and chapter 5 was investing in relationships. But what she meant in terms of serendipitous by design is that a lot of times, I guess, people were asking her, or it seemed that she lived a very charmed life and all these amazing opportunities were falling out of the sky. And it's like, how are all these amazing serendipitous things happening to you? And so she talks about in that chapter that she's, one, able to leave room for serendipitous encounters. So she's not a person that plans so tightly that they don't leave room for, you know, just very cool things to happen that were unplanned. But then she also talks about her network is something that allowed those serendipitous encounters to happen because she had such a strong network, and she was always making sure that she was, you know, around people that were also successful, that were doing things that were movers and shakers. She was also grooming her network, that it was only natural that these different opportunities would come to her. So I think she says something to the effect in the book of like, in the beginning, she would think like, oh, wow, what a coincidence that someone offered me this opportunity. And then she started thinking about it and was like, actually, it's not a coincidence, because I spent time fostering and developing this network. So it's not a coincidence at all. Of course, these amazing things are going to happen to me because I've developed a network where those things are possible, where serendipity is possible. And so I thought that was good in chapter 2. And then in chapter 5, she talked about investing in relationships from the sense of modeling those that she most wants to be like. So having successful people in your corner serves 2 purposes. The first purpose is obviously they, you know, create space and availability for really cool things to be presented to you because, you know, they're networking with their own contacts. But then also they provide a model that you yourself can mold yourself after. And so she talks about how there are lots of people in her network that she is very inspired by, and she thinks that they're all fantastic, and how she would look at their core competencies and she would try to focus on that person's core competency. And so for those of you who have been following me, maybe you listen to my podcast, or maybe you were part of my Big Goal Breakdown Challenge, then you know that I have this concept called a rabbit. And so personally, I will look at someone who is, you know, at the top of their game, at the top of their field in a particular life area. So if it's fitness, I'm looking at a person who's demonstrating excellence in fitness. If it's business, I'm looking at a person who's demonstrating excellence in business, and I'm focusing on that person, and I'm looking how I can model and adapt myself to them. And I call this concept the rabbit because when I was growing up with my dad, we would watch like Olympic racing and just regular, like, you know, USA track team. We loved watching track, and especially on the longer distance races, there was something or a person who led the pack who wasn't designed necessarily to win, even though they were in first place. That person's job was just to maintain the pace of all the other runners. And so the other runners who wanted to win would get right behind that person, and they called that person a rabbit, and they would like stay on them the entire race. So if this is like, you know, an 800-meter race and they're, you know, going around the track however many times, the entire time they would stay behind that person until the very last moment where they were able to break away and then win. And so being behind that person allowed them to save energy, allowed them to not have to think about, am I running at the right speed? What's the right pace? Am I doing my arm movements correctly? All they have to focus on is just staying behind that rabbit. If I could just stay behind him for the entire race, by the time we're on the last final stretch, then I'm free to break out and sprint because I would have conserved mental and physical energy staying behind him. And you also see this in racing. So it's also called drafting, and like you see like NASCAR, Indy 500 or whatever, or even in cycling. So I don't know if I can say Lance Armstrong, he's like totally disgraced, but Tour de France, other cyclists, you'll notice that they all get, you know, right behind the top person, and they will conserve energy by just modeling that person's pace. And so she didn't call it a rabbit, that's why I call it, but she talks about that in terms of building your network, how it's important to get people in your network, not just who can open opportunities for you, but who can also be good role models for you. And they don't have to be good at everything. They can just be good at one specific thing, and then you model yourself after them and, you know, apply and adapt those areas to your life. So when I read that and she was like, yeah, look at people's core competencies and apply them to my own life, I felt so vindicated. I was like, yes, I'm on the right track. I've been saying that this is something that you should do. So it was cool to see that. So you guys talk to me. What does your network look like? You know, are you deliberately cultivating a network where really amazing positive chance encounters can happen? Are you cultivating a network where you have people that you can look to who are great influences on you and that you can model yourself after in different areas of your life? Or is that something that's been a struggle for you, but you're working on it? You know, I hear a lot, people are like, well, I don't live in a big city, or the people around me aren't, you know, people that I want to model after, or aren't necessarily good for my network. So share, what are some things, even if you haven't been doing them, what are you going to do in order to personally increase your network? So I will wait for the comments. And we are at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. So Lauren has the link. She should be jumping in shortly. I'm going to check my email just to make sure that we don't have any technical difficulties. So that she is able to jump on with us. And I'll also wait for your comments. So you guys are sharing how you're developing your networks. Or if you're not developing your networks, how you're going to develop your networks. So let me check my phone, just make sure. No notifications. I suppose I could start with my LinkedIn connections, not being ashamed to ask a good connection out for coffee and to share my goals, etc. That's very true. Super important to reach out to people. And she talks about that too. I'm not sure if it was in chapter 2 or chapter 5, but she talks about not being scared to ask for help and not being scared to, you know, tap your network, or to just say, hey, I think you're awesome. Let's go for lunch. That was one of the questions. It was, who are you? One of the questions was, who's in your network? Who are you going out to lunch with next week? So that's a great question to ask yourself. And another one was, who do you want to meet that you haven't met yet? So being very strategic and almost creating a hit list of people that you want to make sure that you are reaching out to. Oh, okay, we're getting more comments. It's like hard for me to read them all. This is good. So what do you guys think? I try to make the meet and greets to my business so that I can get cards and be able to talk to those when my vehicle feels it's moving in the wrong direction and I need advice to get on the right track. That is so true. Lauren also talks about that in, let me see the chapter's name. It wasn't the Reinvent Yourself chapter, but I think it was Bouncing Back Gracefully, where she talks about, oh yes, and in Reinventing Yourself, where she actually talks about her divorce and how that was a very trying time in her life, but thankfully she had really great people, not only in her professional networks, but personally too. And she talks about a family friend who was like a mom to her, who was able to kind of, you know, get her back on the right track and get her head in the game, even after dealing something as traumatic as a divorce. So I think that's a really great strategy. Let me see who shared that comment. Was it Nora? Did you share that comment? Well, I think it's a really great strategy. So let me make sure we are still all good with Lauren. Hopefully she's not having technical difficulty. Oh, and I just missed a call, but there was no caller ID, so I can't call them back. Lauren, if you're watching and that was you calling, go ahead and call me back. Hopefully we're not having any technical difficulties. Oh, I have a voicemail, guys. This is like so weird. Okay, that was Lauren. Sorry, guys, we're having a little technical difficulties, but I'm going to go ahead and email her the link really quick. Oh, here's her texting. We are on and live. Let me send you. I'm going to try to invite her from inside. Okay. Okay, so I just invited her again. I'm about to text the link. Sorry, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. This is a good time to start gearing up your questions and getting those ready so that when she jumps on, we have a bunch of things to talk to her about. I know her time is limited, which is why she was only able to jump on halfway with us today. So I want to make sure that when she gets on, we're able to rock and roll. And of course, my phone would be acting so slow. Thank you all for your patience. Okay. Let me send this to her one more time. Oh, hold on.
Hello. Hi.
Hey, there she is.
I don't see you though, but
Oh,
as long as you can see me, I guess that's all that matters.
yes. I can't see you now, actually.
I had two different links for this, by the way. I had one from Audrey and one from, like, I just realized that the links were not the same in the two.
Oh, okay. No problem. Well, I'm really happy that you're here. I'm not sure what's going on. I can see your lovely avatar, but I can't see your face live.
I'm not sure. Do you want to try to, I don't know, is there another link you want to try again or?
Yes. And can you make sure that your camera is on?
Yep, the camera's on. I see myself.
That is so weird. Okay. Maybe there's something I'm doing wrong with this cameraman app inside. Okay. It says I'm presenting you to everyone. But you can't see me.
No.
That is so weird. I've never had this happen before. I am so sorry. Those of you who are watching in the chat box, if you guys could let us know if you could see Lauren. I don't know if it's something just going on with my camera or not.
I don't see you either. Let's maybe try to disconnect and just reconnect again. What do you think?
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, I'll call back in.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience. We're applying the strategies in her book, right? We're rolling with the punches. That's all that matters. I know there's a 30-second delay, so when she joined, if you guys can let us know if you saw her, that would be really helpful. Let us know if you can see her. She's back on, but it is still blank. My goodness, I don't know what is going on. People are saying I can only see her avatar. No, I did not see her. People are saying avatar. How do we get it so that you all can see Lauren? Okay. So we're going to try to invite her by another means. Give us just a hot second. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Miss Brandy. Okay, so I'm going to try one more time. We're going to get her on. We're going to get her on. Okay. Can you guys share screens, maybe? See, it's weird because she joins and can't see me, and I join and can't see her, and I have no idea what is going on. And usually people just pop in, and there they are. Do we need to? Oh, okay. I see what's happening. Technology, guys. How crazy. How do we get her on? And that is where the link takes her. Oh, okay. We might just have to do audio only. Okay. So in the meantime, what are you guys most excited about asking Lauren once she jumps on? I know we're going to get her in here. Let's see. Because maybe if we can only get her on audio, we'll still be able to ask her questions. So load them up. We're working on it. Load your questions up in the queue. We're getting it together. I just sent her another link. Let me send her the event page. Maybe we can just have her on audio. Are you guys getting your questions ready? So I think we're going to have her on audio. Make sure that you guys have your questions ready. Hopefully we can have her back in just a second. I hate to Google on air how to get someone to join, but I've done this before and I don't know what's going on. How to do what you got to do. Okay, guys, so I'm going to exit out and then come right back, and then hopefully Lauren will be with me. So bear with me, don't go anywhere. I'm going to exit and I'll be...
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Hello. Hi, all
Heck,
the ladies in the
nightmare.
group waiting for me to join.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Thank you, Lord. I was like, well, we're just going to have to end this and we'll come back. Thank you all for participating. So I'm glad that it worked out. Hi, Lauren.
Well, I bet you guys have stopped and had some wine or something.
I know. Little detour. So I know you only had a few minutes to answer questions, so we'll jump right into it. I'm not sure if you can see the chat box, but people have been sharing their experiences. We were all really inspired by how you talked in the first chapter, the entrepreneurial life, how your parents really kind of molded and shaped you in having the entrepreneurial spirit from an early age. And so people were sharing their experiences as well. But we had someone, it was kind of a question where she was saying that she feels that she has the entrepreneurial spirit, but she struggles with the execution. So can you speak to that and what you would recommend for someone who's dealing with that issue?
Yes, and I just want to make sure, is this orientation better than the original orientation with the camera?
Yes, this is better.
Perfect. Okay. So execution and struggling with execution, I cannot see the chat box. So if you could just feed me questions, that would be great.
Okay.
I think execution is everything. So for most entrepreneurs, there are so many companies, everyone has ideas, everyone is full of ideas. It always comes down to execution. And I think that for me, and I talk about this in the book, and I know that you all have read it or at least begun to read it, what keeps me motivated are these really big, lofty goals. So, it's like light at the end of the tunnel is the really big goal. And then I break that down into smaller, easier to digest chunks of, milestones that are easier to attain. And so when you think to yourself, as an example, I want to start I want to be the next, Tony Robbins. I want to be on the speaking circuit or whatever. And that is your initial goal. That's really hard to execute on, right? Like there's so many steps. But I think that big goal for me, as an example, for just example's sake, is what keeps me motivated enough to keep pushing and keep going and keep pushing and keep going. But excuse me, that down into smaller chunks that are easier. You say, okay, well, with my topics, my speaking topics, or my website, I'm going to be more consistent with my social media and my messaging. I'm going to start blogging. I'm going, you break it down into smaller chunks. I'm going to book my first gig. I'm going to book my first 5 speaking engagements. I'm going to update my speaker's kit, just using this as an example. So, but I think taking that into smaller chunks that are easier to digest is really the way to go. But you need to also find a way to stay motivated and to stay the course no matter what happens.
Wow, that is really great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Those of you who have more questions, keep feeding them in the Q&A. There's a 30-second delay on this, so they will come in. But we had another comment from someone who was saying not only is execution an issue, but they also struggle with being an introvert and that they're trying to be more extroverted. And I know in the book you talked a lot about how important having those networks are for those serendipitous opportunities. So what would you say to someone who wants to pursue entrepreneurship, but they're just really introverted?
So I think, there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are introverted. They are oftentimes the ones that are the operational ones behind the scenes, not the ones that are, the spokesperson of the business or the rainmaker of the business. Those tend to be, the people that are very introspective and very analytical. And I think it's okay to be introverted, but I think you have to really work hard to make sure that you're in your career through your network that are meaningful. I do find sometimes that the people that are introverted, I have deeper connections with. They're harder to connect with initially, but when you do connect with them, you have a much more meaningful, profound connection because they're not into small talk, because they're not extroverted. They're not the person that you're going to meet at the cocktail party that's going to want to say, oh, hey, and how old are your kids? Where do they go to school? And what sports do they do? They don't care about. Oh, you can. So they tend to be the people who are, who are really looking to make meaningful connections if and when they connect at all. And so I would say that for the person that's introverted, look for something to connect on that's really meaningful and important to you. Don't worry about going and making small talk. And if it's intimidating for you to do this kind of quote unquote networking, then I would make a very clear agenda before every event. So assuming that the introverted person also becomes kind of intimidated and overwhelmed in, networking scenarios or speaking engagements or whatever, I would recommend that they do their homework in advance so that they kind of have their marching orders in place so that they don't feel like they're going into the room and then freezing and saying, oh my gosh, where do I go? Where do I turn? I don't know anybody. And then maybe as an exercise, something that I actually recommend to friends of mine who are introverted and trying to become extroverted is to start spending more time with yourself and feel comfortable being alone. Because I find that most people who are introverted and uncomfortable in those sorts of scenarios are also not comfortable having a date with themselves, right? Not comfortable, spending time on their own or going to a local bar for dinner and sitting by themselves, or, so do exercises that you feel to come out of your shell a little bit. And then when it comes time for big events that overwhelm you, have clear marching orders. If it's a conference, look at the agenda ahead of time and say, who do I want to meet? Who do I want to speak with? Where I think they're going to be, so that you at least have, when you enter the room and you don't feel like you have this idle time that I think can be a little nerve-wracking for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really, really great advice. And I'm glad you spoke about networking, because that was something that we were discussing before you got online. And speaking of networking, a lot of people kind of don't know where to even go to start building their networks. Some of those in the chat room were saying maybe they could do better about reaching out to their LinkedIn connections or reaching out to people and going out for coffee. So just in general, how would you approach building your network if you had to start over from scratch?
Ooh, that's a hard one, actually, because I can't imagine starting over from scratch. I think you're connected to someone doesn't mean that you're networking. So I think that's a misnomer to think that you are linked to, doesn't mean that you know them or they know you, doesn't mean that that's a connection that's deep enough to, call a meeting right away or to be able to pick up the phone. And I think the goal of establishing relationships with people should be, I think, that you want to have a relationship where you can pick up the phone and do something without having to go through a formal process. So by way of example, my connections now in various industries allow, very quickly and very easily get things done over telephone or over text or over an email without having to go through an RFP process and this, that, and the other, just because of the connection that I have with that individual and the relationship that we've established, the rapport that we've established over time by working together or sitting on a board together or whatever. So again, going back to what I was saying before, connections are really important in that regard. And so, I would say that if you, it's hard because I really think it depends on what your industry is and what you're trying to, the value that you're trying to derive out of that relationship. But I know, as an example, when I meet someone, if I'm getting a boilerplate email the next day that says, "Hi, it was so great to meet you, and I would love to pick your brain one day," like, nobody wants to get those emails, so don't send them.
Okay.
Try to personalize it. Even if you have some sort of a template, try to personalize it and try to make some sort of real connection in real life when you first meet them, so that when you're following up on email, you can say, I would love to continue the conversation, or I can't believe you're my neighbor, or can't believe, we both play XYZ sport, or that we both have a love of piano, or, something that reminds the person on the other end of that communication that you're a real human being, because all people want to be spoken to and treated as if they're real people. And so I would think about those things when you're following up, and don't use the words pick brain. Don't and offer something. Don't just say, "Hey, I'd like to grab lunch with you and I just want from you." Offer something as well in exchange.
Great advice. I've heard from many successful entrepreneurs that picking the brain is like something no one ever wants to do. So
oh gosh.
We'll definitely heed that advice. And also, before you jumped on, we were also discussing, you had a comment in the book about how you don't allow people to make assumptions about you, which would come in handy during networking events, which I would think. But for many of us, we have taken the position of, we just allow the assumptions to be made and then hope that we can prove otherwise later. And so I thought it was really interesting that you said when you meet people, you don't allow them to pigeonhole you, you don't allow them to make assumptions. So can you speak more about how you do that? What does that look like? And how those of us who are on the call can do that as well.
So when I say that in the book, I mean that, I think we can end up in scenarios, or I can end up in a scenario in a room where I feel like someone's looking at me and says, kind of the classic ones are, "Oh, well, you couldn't have done all of this. You're too young. How old are you?" Well, no, I could have done it all, and I started in 19. And so, it's a polite way to just say, "No, actually, a really long time. And I've always had my eye on the prize, and I've always worked really hard. And, I may not be as young as I look," and that sort of thing. Another one that I get all the time is, "Oh, and you have 2 children? Oh, so you didn't go to college, did you?" No, I went to college. I have a bachelor's of science. I'm cum laude in international trade and marketing. And there's a way to kill them with kindness, but don't allow people to look at you and stereotype you as, "Oh, she's attractive, so she can't be smart," or, "Oh, she's done all of this, so she couldn't have gone to college," or, "Oh, she has children, so she can't possibly, really be committed to work, so that," or, and sometimes, it won't be so polite. And I've had people also just look at me and say, "Oh, well, how do you do that? Well, how do you compete with the boys in the boys club," kind of thing. And I always say, you know what? I actually don't look at it as competing in the boys club. I just look at it as just working. And these are my colleagues. And like, this is how we get things done. And, I hope that they don't look at me as the girl in their club, because I certainly don't, kind of thing. So, it's really being about it, but in a nice way. And you'll find more often than not that the people who do that, they do it because it's something that I guess they're accustomed to doing, or maybe a machismo kind of behavior, or it's very rarely that they intend to be condescending. I find, I find that oftentimes when I do that, people then say, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm just so sorry. I just assumed. It's rare that someone's like, yeah, I just, like, oh, chip on my shoulder kind of thing. That happens, but it's very rare. I think oftentimes people are just amazed at what people can accomplish, what women can accomplish, especially because this happens for all sorts of women. I have girlfriends that are, big time attorneys and having children and made partner, and like, oh, well, so I mean, you couldn't have taken maternity leave, right? Or, how did you have the kids? Or, you must have a lot of nannies. Or, and they're just like, you know what? No, I'm a mom and I'm an attorney and I'm a partner and I'm this and I'm that. And I've just figured out a way to make it work. And that's when people kind of say, oh my gosh, hats off to you. Like, how are you? Like, I couldn't do it, kind of thing. So I first try to kill people with kindness, but make sure that I put them in their place, or that I correct an assumption that I think that they're making about me. And if I do need to, in a more direct, straight to the point manner, I certainly don't shy away from doing that. But I try to kill people with kindness first, because I think the goal for me in those sorts of scenarios is to make people feel so silly for having made that assumption. Like, I don't want to anger you. I just want to correct you. And I want you to respect me in the way that I deserve to be respected.
I love that. That is really brilliant. I will personally be heeding that advice. And also in the book, when you touched on that, I thought it was not odd, but when you said sometimes you have to recognize that flattery will come in the form of like kind of snide comments and remarks. But I think you hit on it there when you said a lot of times people are just amazed, genuinely. I mean, I was personally amazed reading your book and seeing everything that you've accomplished, especially, starting a winery at 19. I remember thinking, like, how did she do that? And she couldn't even legally drink. Like, how did that happen? So can you speak more to about just how you've been able to do so much in terms of time management? I know for my audience, it's something really big that, a lot of women struggle with, especially those that are working a 9-to-5 job and want to get into entrepreneurship. Many in my audience are also single moms. So I guess in a high level, can you speak to the logistics of making things happen when you're young, making things happen in a male-dominated industry, and making things happen when presumably you wouldn't have a lot of time?
So I think the advice is the same on all of them, to tell you the truth. It's prioritizing what is important to you, but also prioritizing what's going to make you happiest and prioritizing where you're going to get the most leverage. So, the things that I cross off of my to-do list on a daily basis are the things that are going to get me the most leverage or get me the most breathing room, or the things that are going to make me the happiest. And so, it's something business related that I need to get off my plate because it's stressing me out. Sometimes it's something deeply personal that involves my children or my home. And it's like, you know what? I'm not going to be good business Lauren today if I'm worried about Jaden and Chloe's needs at school, or if they're sick and I'm not there for them in the way I feel I need to be there for them, depending on how sick they are, or, act in other ways because I feel like I'm not winning in other areas of my life. And so that's how I prioritize. I mean, that is my time management. The other thing is I do what I can, when I can, how I can. And I've been saying now to people, you know what, sorry, you're asking too much of me in this moment. And I've gotten really good at doing that recently. If I can't do it, I used to be the person who always said yes. And this is in the book as well. I said yes, yes, yes to opportunities. I didn't want to lose an opportunity. I didn't want people to think I was overwhelmed or pass me up or whatever. So it was really, I guess it was FOMO before FOMO even, made sense or was a coined term, right? It was just like, I don't want to miss this opportunity. And so I'm going to say yes. And now I'm realizing I don't have to say yes to everything, and I can't say yes to everything, and it's okay. And sometimes you feel bad, people will follow up with me. Okay, well, I'll check in 2 weeks. I'm like, please don't. And not don't because I don't want to hear from you, but please don't because you're not going to have my full attention right now. So let me tell you when a better time would be. We can put it on the calendar for now if you'd like. We can put it on the calendar for a month from now. Or you can reach out to me in a month from now. But I'm not going to be the best version of you or to be involved with you on your project or whatever it is that you can be reaching out to me about in this moment. And so I've learned what my limitations are.
Yes.
And how to communicate them. And the right people appreciate that. The right people go, you know what, thanks so much. I'll be in touch with you then. Because it's like, look, I can hop on the phone with you, but this is we were supposed to do this Google Hangout a couple of weeks ago, right? We needed to change the date. And then I was traveling. And then tonight I have to go to a movie premiere. And so I stepped out of the movie premiere to come sit in my car to do this cool hangout with you
Oh, wow.
because I have to do it.
Yeah.
I want to do it. But this is, thankfully we have technology that can connect in some of these ways.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely appreciate you saying yes and you being here, and we do want to be respectful of your time. So if you have to go, then that's fine. But if you can take maybe one or two more of the questions from the audience.
Absolutely. 2 more questions. Let's do it. I'd love to do it.
Sure. So Crystal says, what suggestions can you give a new entrepreneur for switching off corporate America / 9-to-5 mindset and switching into a more collaborative entrepreneurial mindset? Is there any carryover from traditional jobs to entrepreneurialism?
I think there's not a lot of carryover, other than obviously like getting your work done and being good at what you do. I think the biggest, when I'm speaking to people, or when I'm even speaking to big corporations or giving keynote speeches, or when I'm engaging with people one-on-one or with founding teams who are going from corporate America and entrepreneur, I think the hardest hurdle is going from a work environment where you have very clear directives, roles, and responsibilities, where there's people who have responsibility for certain things. And so it's like if you're coming from a job and you're director or manager of a department, or you're EVP or SCP, no matter what your title is, you're accustomed to in a silo every day. Like you just do that one thing that you're responsible for doing, and then you bounce an email to another colleague when you need analytics, or you bounce an email to someone in social media if you need to know what your reach was, or you bounce an email to the finance department if you need to know what is looking like, or if you need a reimbursement request or whatever it may be. But you're accustomed to things being compartmentalized in departments. And when you go into a more collaborative entrepreneurial environment, especially when it's an early stage company, everyone has to do everything. And so that kind of like chest out, like this is who I am, this is what I look for, this is what I do, really relevant. Like everyone's there to learn on the job, because you're learning so much as you're building. Like it's the best way to possibly learn. I don't have an MBA. It's in the book. When I was going to go get an MBA, a colleague said, no, go start another business. And it was the best thing I could have ever done, because I learned more starting that company than I could have, going to business school. So I think, the biggest piece of advice is to embrace having to do everything. Like embrace being a jack of all trades, and don't think of it as going backwards. It's not belittling or demeaning. Like you'll go to a startup community, those just with that title may go get their own coffee. It just happens. You may have to answer your own phone. You may have to make your own copies. You may, it's just the way that it goes. And depending again on the size of the company and how mature the company and the brand is, that may or may not be the case at that time, or it may, progress as the company grows and there may be more infrastructure. But I think the big part of a collaborative environment is that everyone is willing to do everything, and everyone's willing to step outside of their comfort zone a little bit, their traditional role or responsibility for the better good of the company. Whereas when you're working in a corporate structure, it's like, well, this is my department, and this is my P&L, and this is my, this is my KPI, and so this is all I'm responsible for. So too bad that Johnny in the department over there isn't doing their job. Like this is now something, a time when you're in an entrepreneurial environment where, everyone really is pulling everyone's weight and working together in that regard. And so I hope that whoever asked this question is prepared to kind of approach their new job in that way.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering that. And I think this segues nicely into another question we had. There's so many comments, so I'm losing the person's name, but their question was to the effect of they understand that networking and going after these opportunities before they think they're ready is really important, but how does one actually fake it till they make it? And you talked about that in the book, just faking it if you don't have the confidence to go out there. So practically speaking, how can someone do that?
I wish I could ask in what context. Like, is this a job interview or is it just life in general? But do we know?
They didn't say. It was just fake, or maybe I think they mentioned networking. But if you could speak to, any context, maybe more how it worked in your life. I know you spoke about before you were you went to be managing director that at first you weren't quite sure that you were qualified, but you took it on anyway, and now you do fantastic at it. So
yeah. So that wasn't really fake it till you make it. That was a very different scenario. That was, I know what I know, and I know very clearly what I don't know. And so I was reaching out to, in that scenario of going to start a fund, I reached out to everyone who I knew and who I didn't know but learned about and respected. I read everything I could read on them. I listened to every possible TED Talk I could listen to. I was on Investopedia. I was learning, terminology. Like if I'd hear something and maybe I felt silly in a meeting because they're using terminology that I didn't know, like I wasn't afraid to go on my iPhone and like look up the term. And then, make a running tab of the things that I didn't know that I needed to know. And now those things have become a part of my daily life and my vernacular and just like the way that I do business. But I also, reached out to people and was really kind of persistent about making sure that I soaked up as much knowledge as I needed to be successful at what I was doing, because I never want to fail. And so, I didn't also want to waste anybody's time. So I came very, I was very clear and concise on what I wanted to know and the questions that I had for different sorts of people based on their areas of expertise and their experience in the industry. But going to the kind of fake it till you make it, I would say, if this is an introvert or not, but, mirrors help, role play in the mirror if you have to, like do whatever you need to do to get inside of your head. I mean, I'm a music person. So like when I'm putting on my makeup in the morning, getting ready, I've got my music on. When I'm working out, like I have my chant music, like, get yourself in the, whatever that is for you. That can be working out. Maybe it's an adrenaline rush. Maybe it's your music. Maybe it's, looking at yourself in the mirror and just saying like, I got this, like affirmations to yourself. But whatever you need to get your mind in the zone, to be confident and to be yourself, you can attract the opportunities and the attention, and that you can hold conversations with people who are going to take you seriously, because body language really is important. Like if you're speaking to someone and they're hunched over or they're this or they're that and they're not standing up straight, this is a very different Lauren Maillian, nice to meet you, versus hi, I'm Lauren Maillian, nice to meet you. So do whatever you need to do to feel like you are your best self. That's different for everybody, but those are the things that have worked.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to hold you any longer, in the car on this chat. Thanks for taking the time to join.
That's okay. Do you have another question? I don't want to.
There were so many, a lot of them were kind of wrapped as comments, and then they would kind of have a question. So it's difficult for me to get through them all. Let me see if I could pull one here really quickly. Well, a lot of people spoke about how their parents did or didn't model entrepreneurship. And one person commented that, seeing her mother be in all of these roles really allowed her to understand that she could, still take after her family and then go after her dreams. So for you personally, how has that been a part of your drive and wanting to achieve all of these things, and then, also be a role model for your own children? So can you speak more about that, and how those who are in the audience who have children, how they can kind of balance those roles and be a good role model while, achieving their dreams as well?
So my answer is so simple. It's just not that complicated, first. Second is that the people who stress themselves out because they are working so much and they haven't enough time with their kids, think about who your children's role models are. And so, yeah, I work a lot. Yes, I travel a lot. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad mom. I'm a single mom to 2 kids. I have sole custody of my kids. They are mine 1,000%, 24/7, 365. So talk about guilt. I feel more guilt than the normal parent who would at least say, oh, well, my spouse is at home, or so-and-so's at home, kind of holding down the fort. Yes, I have, an amazing team of people that are working for me and with me to help me raise my kids, but I certainly have, a level of guilt when I'm not there, and when there's not another parent in my absence. But that in no way compares to the amount of joy and the amount of pride that I feel in seeing and hearing my kids go, I want to be mommy when I grow up. My son wants to run my business. My daughter, loves me and admires me and wants to be mommy. She helps me get ready to go out at night if I'm going to an event. She helps me pick out my clothes for a meeting. She wants to know what's going on. And of course they get their social media love, and I talk about work-life integration. I tie them into every aspect of my life as often and as much as I possibly can. But at the end of the day, I never guilt myself over the amount that I work, because they are so proud of me. Like my son, in fact, tonight, he says, oh, my teacher asked about your TV show. I said, what did you tell her? He says, well, I told her that it's called Quit Your Day Job and it's on Oxygen every Friday at 7. you know, and he's like super proud. And he like goes for his play dates with friends, and like they say, "We're gonna watch the show," and mom, dad, it's really cool. You know, and he has so much pride. And away for 3 months, I lived in LA filming that show. My kids flew back and forth, and they lived with me out in LA for the entire month of June last year when school was out. But you know, those were a really difficult 2 months where I was not with them every day and just saw them on the weekend. But the result is that I'm a part of this awesome TV show. They were a part of the journey because I brought them into the fold. Like I had them with me in LA. They were flying back and forth, and they came on set. They got to meet my co-stars and know the production team. And so now when they see it come to life, like they have the amount of pride and joy that, you know, one would have if it were their own project. And so I think that's my advice, is just think about who you want your role model to be. So do you stay at home and not work as hard and not strive for as much, and your kid grows up wanting to be somebody in, you know, pop culture or someone else's parent that they see who's doing really cool things in life and in business? Or do you want to work really hard and make sure that your kids look at that and say, that's who I want to be. I want to be my mom. Like I want to be my dad. I want to run that company. Like I want to make sure that this goes forward. And so that's enough for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that was a part of your story as well, right? You said you wanted to be an investment banker doing mortgage-backed securities because of your father and his experience.
Yep. That's what, at the time, I thought that was so cool. I mean, I saw him like, you know, taking the trains to GC, and he had a trench coat and he had a briefcase. And I was like, ooh, that's cool. I want a trench coat and a briefcase, and I want to wear heels, and I want to, yeah, you know, kids want to be people, not just kids want to be what they see. Why do we have people that want to get into tech? Because they see the success of a Mark Zuckerberg. They see the success of a Jack Dorsey or a Chris Sacca, or, you know, an Ashton Kutcher if they're an actor investing in tech. Now all of a sudden it's cool. People only want to be what they see. So we need to make sure that we have more positive images of resilience, of persistence, of diligence, of, you know, of womanhood, and to want to be that.
Totally agree. And that actually ties in with Crystal had a comment/question in that she was saying she's still working on not feeling obligated to explain her plans to people. So I can imagine for yourself, you know, doing different things and knowing that it's the right situation for you and your family and your career goals. And do you ever feel obligated to explain yourself, or do you just go after what you want to go after and explain later? So how does that work for you in your own life?
It really depends on what the scenario is. Sometimes I explain later. I tend not to talk about things that are in negotiation, like fully come to fruition. But when it comes to, you know, life decisions and career decisions, I don't stress myself out about having to explain it to people anymore. Like I took that pressure off of myself probably a year and a half ago. You know, I don't have my plans to everyone. I don't have to succumb to, you know, the outside pressure of everyone else wanting to know what's next, because honestly, the people who sincerely want to know what's next for the better good of you and your life and your career will be the people that you want to confide in and telling them what you're thinking about doing next. The people who just want to know what's next, just to know, hey, what's next? Hey, what's next? They don't have a genuine interest in what's going on for you next. And so I don't succumb to that pressure.
Okay, that's good. Well, I'll take note not to succumb to the pressure of always having to explain yourself.
You know, there's someone who wants to gab, you know, girl, what's next for you? What are you going to do next? Like,
yeah,
you know, different from the person who is like your confidant or a mentor or an advisor or a best friend or your spouse, or who says, hey, you know, I've been thinking about you and you're doing so well, and, you know, what's next for you? Like, where do you see things going for you? That's a very different kind of it's a very different kind of question and a very different type of concern. So, you know, having that level of discernment and also intuition is really important in general.
right. Speaking,
because the people who just want to know just to gossip will suck you dry of all your energy every single time.
Yeah. Oh. Speaking of intuition, how would you recommend that those of us here kind of hone our intuition so that we know the difference in terms of sticking with your plans and then changing directions to allow for some of that serendipity? I know for you, after one venture, you said that you were going to take some time off, and then another amazing opportunity came up, and then you were, you know, off to the races. So how do you kind of check in with yourself, your own gut feeling, to know when you should stick to what you plan and when you should do something else?
It's just, for me, is it worth it even if I fail? It's something that I really want to do, and fail or succeed, am I still going to be happy that I made this decision?
Can you talk about your that decision calculus? Because I'm sure that factors into you deciding whether or not you're going to be happy with your decision.
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot in the book about my non-negotiables, and so I check my list of non-negotiables, which are different for everybody else, and say, is this something that I'm going to be willing to do, and am I going to be happy to do it for the time commitment that's required of me?
Okay. All right. All right. Well, let me see if we have any last minute questions that anyone has popped up. I don't think so. I think we addressed them all.
No? Awesome.
Thanks so much again for taking the time
Thank
to do
you.
this. Yes, even with the
Glad that we could do this.
difficulties. So you have fun at your movie premiere, your movie event. And for the rest of you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope that you all enjoyed the book. If you want to hashtag anything on social media, it's just hashtag the Path Redefined. I'm at Lauren Maillian everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that. Please, if you have questions or posts or anything about your journey, or you're shining bright and want to share your story, or you're implementing, things from the book into your life, into your career, I would love to hear from you. So please just hashtag the Path Redefined and tag me at Lauren Maillian.
Sounds awesome. So you all heard from Lauren Maillian herself. We're really appreciative that she was here today. As she said, check her out on her show, Quit Your Day Job, on Fridays at 7, correct? On Oxygen?
Yes.
Okay. So I know I've been catching up on some of the shows, and everybody in my group has been watching it, and they really enjoy what you are doing.
Amazing.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Okay, it was a pleasure, Courtney.
Okay.
Okay,
bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so even through the technical difficulties, we still got through it. Thank you all for being super patient and sharing your comments, your feedback, your questions. That was really good. She has a lot of great insight. If you haven't had the opportunity, go ahead and get the book, like she said, The Path Redefined. And then, of course, if you're not a member of the Think and Grow Chick accountability group, make sure you do that. Go to thinkandgrowchick.com/join to jump on with us, where we'll have more book club discussions. I want this to be a regular thing where I'm bringing in other authors. I promise next time we'll make sure that, all the links are together and that people are able to jump on at the scheduled time. But I'm glad that it all worked out. So yeah, if this is something that you enjoyed and you want to do more of this and you don't want to miss out or find out at the last minute, make sure you're part of the accountability group at thinkandgrowchick.join. So with that, I will let you all go to your evening. It's about 9:30 Eastern. It's 8:30 here. So thanks so much for taking some time out of your evening to join me and Lauren. And I will catch you on thinkandgrowchick.com, on my Instagram, in your email inbox, everywhere that you can find me online. So thank you all. Bye.